So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this morning. I know a lot of people are just talking about this morning and what a wonderful session that was. So I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, when I think back of this morning, I think back of the opening that Molina Speaks did for us, along with Senor Reyes, about being ourselves, about being our authentic selves, and being able to go ahead and take that leadership and take it to another level. Then we had Carlos Menchaca, who told us about, think as yourself as a leader, tap into the talents of your community. And most importantly, that we have to continually develop leaders in our community. They're the ones who are going to take things to the next level. Then we went to our panel session, which was outstanding panel session. A couple of things that stood out to me in the panel session was that right now, 1 in 6 workers in the United States are Latinos, and by 2050, it'll be 1 in 3. Also, we heard other things, but I think one of the things was the ability to practice our values, to take risks, to engage in community, to create those types of communities that are there for everyone. 3 things that I just want you to mention about the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado. We're so pleased to be able to host this annual event, but our work really focuses around 3 areas. One is thought leadership, that we need to be able to have events like this where we convene people, push the envelope, and help people to expand their thinking, to think differently of what their role in community is. The second area that we look at is community impact. And through community impact, we invest in organizations and leaders throughout Colorado by giving grants, and then we also have special initiatives. We have various special initiatives right now, one on aging called the Latino Age Wave, Hip to College, Summer Melt, helping Latinos, youth, and other youth transition from high school to post-secondary education. We have our Latinas Lead, which you will know a little bit more about today, and I hope you stick around for that. And then our third one, which is our Colorado Immigrant Funders Collaborative. So that comprises our community impact. And then our third area is philanthropy. And one of the things that I share with folks around philanthropy is that philanthropy has so much power because you control how you want to be able to move. You have the resources to be able to do that, to really create and change in your local communities. I always say that here in Colorado, Latinos have a buying power of $25 billion a year. If we could just convert that 0.1% of that buying power into philanthropic power, that would be $25 million that we would be putting back into our communities. And we need to get there. The other thing that I want to just do also, again, is just thank our sponsors. This event could not be made possible with the support of our sponsors. We try to make this event as accessible as possible, thanks to our sponsors. They, again, are the Denver Art Museum as our premium sponsor. Our gold sponsor and our luncheon sponsor is AT&T. Our silver sponsors are Colorado Health Foundation, Quest Diagnostics, and Ready Foods. Our bronze sponsors are Caring for Colorado, Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, the Colorado Trust, Energy Outreach Colorado, University of Denver Latino Center for Community Engagement and Scholarship, Wells Fargo, and Excel Energy. And our media sponsor is Be Visible. Let's give them a round of applause for their support of today's forum. I also want to thank the Board of Directors for all their work in guiding this organization to really be relevant in the community. And when I call your name, if you can raise your hand or you can stand, I would appreciate it. Our chair of the board, Ron Montoya, Adriana Barca, Raydeen Acevedo, Luis Colon, Gay Cook, Sue D'Amore, Mitchell Gonzalez, Deborah Ortega, Gary Poling, and Gloria Schock. So thank you, board members. I also want to thank all our volunteers who made this day possible. We couldn't do this without the support of many volunteers. We're a small staff, and their support is critical to producing an event like this. So thank you, volunteers. I also want to thank our staff who helped to produce this and helped to carry out the work of the foundation. When I started almost 3 years ago, it was just myself, and now I'm proud to say that we have 5 full-time staff now at the Latino Community Foundation who help further the mission. And they are staffs, just raise your hand, Mayra Gonzalez, Nicole Melaku, Priscilla Montoya Vitello, who produced this event, and Daniela Young, as well as our program consultants, Anna Jo Haynes, Maricruz Herrera, Cis Ortiz, and Tony Tapia. Thank you very much for your... And lastly, I want to thank our advisors. We have a team of advisors that advise us and help us through the work that we do through the Rose Community Foundation. The Latino Community Foundation of Colorado is an initiative of Rose Community Foundation, and Rose Community Foundation has been very instrumental in our growth and be able to move forward, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But I just want to thank Sheila Bogdanowicz, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Rose Community Foundation, Therese Ellery, Senior Program Officer on Aging, Elsa Olguin, Senior Program Officer, Child and Family Development, and Janet Lopez, Senior Program Officer of Education. Thank you for your support. And just lastly, I want to thank the staff of the Denver Art Museum, especially Liz, Mike, who have been very instrumental in helping us produce this, as well as their team, who really ensure that you are having a great experience. I can't tell you how fortunate we are to be able to partner with them and to have a group of dedicated folks who really help us produce this. So thank you very much, Denver Art Museum staff, for your support and helping us orchestrate this. I now want to introduce to you Jennifer Price, who is from AT&T, and there are our Gold Luncheon sponsors. Unfortunately, Roberta Robinet, who is the president of AT&T Colorado, was planning on being here with us, but unfortunately, something came up and she is not going to be able to be with us today. But I just can't tell you how fortunate we are to be able to partner with someone like AT&T. Last year, Roberta came to our event as a sponsor and didn't know much about the foundation, but said, you know what, I believe in your mission. After the event, she called me up and said, Carlos, we need to get together. AT&T needs to be a bigger supporter of the work that you are doing and the impact that you are having. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to hear when you have someone who says, I want to partner with you, not just to go ahead and do this, but I want to be there with you year after year, supporting the work that you do and making sure that the impact that you're having is wide-reaching as we do throughout the state. So for me, it is a pleasure to work with someone like AT&T and have them not just sponsor our event, but also know that if I ever have questions about anything, I can call Roberta and say, Roberta, what do you think about this? Or how should I approach this? And she's been wonderful to be able to say, you know, give me feedback or connect with me people who I need to be connected with. That to me is a true partnership. AT&T's foundation's mission of supporting nonprofit organizations and programs foster inclusion. They create opportunities for diverse populations and are committed to enriching and strengthening communities closely aligned with that of the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado. And thus we are honored to be partnering with them. AT&T is committed to supporting programs that address quality of life issues. They value and know how important it is for a community to have access to high quality education, especially their commitment to the Latino and other underserved communities. Please help me in welcoming to the stage Jennifer Price from AT&T.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you told this story about last year, because I can remember Roberta and I sitting at this table last year watching the video on Summer Melt and crying. And so I think we are so grateful to be here this year in a bigger capacity as a partner. So thank you for giving us a moment to address you. As Carlos said, I'm Jennifer Price with AT&T Colorado External Affairs, so I'm local here in the state of Colorado. People are often surprised when I tell them that AT&T has nearly 4,000 employees across Colorado. And we look forward to helping make our communities stronger and supporting programs in communities across the state where we live, work, and play. Within AT&T's 139-year history of innovation is a story about our employees that represent people from all walks of life coming together to connect people with their world. We're proud to partner with Latino Community Foundation of Colorado and support Latinas Lead. And we appreciate the foundation for their leadership in creating serious discussions on voting and community engagement. It is AT&T's diverse and inclusive culture that welcomes all points of view and makes us who we are, a great place to work, a desired business partner, and a committed member of the communities that we serve. AT&T's strong, diverse workforce reflects the diversity of our customers and our vendors. AT&T's 50-state workforce is 33% female and 42% people of color. Latinos make up 13% of AT&T's workforce. AT&T is committed to supporting organizations and projects that strengthen the Latino community. Over the past 5 years, AT&T, the AT&T Foundation, and its employees contributed nearly $147 million to organizations and projects that strengthen the Latino community. Support for organizations like the National Council of La Raza to support Project Macho, a program that focuses on young Latino men at risk of dropping out of high school. LULAC's Empower Hispanic America with technology centers, such as the one in Colorado Springs. Nationally, we have long-standing involvement as supporters and board members in policy-oriented organizations like the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, NALEO, LULAC, and the National Council of La Raza. I could go on, but it is our focus on education and workforce development that has some of the greatest impacts in our communities, because jobs are the economic drivers of prosperity. And we recognize that as a company, we are only as strong as our workforce. AT&T is driving innovation in education to promote student success in school and beyond through our signature philanthropic initiative, AT&T Aspire. We're leveraging technology, relationships, and social innovation to help all students make their biggest dreams a reality. Through Aspire, we have passed the $250 million mark on our plan to invest $350 million in education between 2008 and 2017. Thank you. Education has been a priority for AT&T for more than a century, and we believe that when we invest in education, we are making our communities stronger, safer, and more economically viable. Investing in a well-educated workforce may be the single most important thing we can do to support a strong global economy. Business leaders in Colorado and across the country are eager to find qualified employees with the skills, training, and education they need to succeed in today's and tomorrow's workforce. And AT&T is investing in innovative education organizations, tools, and solutions, and employing technology and capabilities that are unique to our company to make a positive impact on education. As we continue on this journey, we aspire to continue to remove barriers to academic success and career growth, and to help all students, regardless of age, gender, income, or zip code, make their biggest dreams become a reality. It's partnerships like today's event with the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado that helps support that much-needed leadership to strengthen our communities and create a strong, thriving global economy. Thank you for giving me a moment to speak.
Please continue enjoying your lunch. Hello, my name is Ron Montoya. I'm chair of the board of the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado. I'm pleased to share this day with you and appreciative of the learning that has and will continue to take place throughout the day. Our vision for the foundation calls for convening the community and addressing critical issues so that together we can shape a dynamic narrative for Latinos and all people of Colorado. This year marks our third forum with record-breaking attendance, a testament that our community seeks informative, stimulating, and thought-provoking opportunities to expand their thinking to engage in positive social change for everyone. This year's forum, Civic Innovation, Weaving Identities to Strengthen Our Communities, speaks to the importance of being civically engaged and how together we must have a united voice. Let's connect our pride, our heritage, and our identities so that we can enrich the lives of every Coloradoan. For the last 9 years, we have come a long way through the support of Rose Community Foundation. Since the beginning, they have committed to seeing the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado flourish. Here today to say a few words and help me introduce our 2016 Soul of Leadership, and that's spelled S-O-U-L, Soul of Leadership Award, is Sheila Bagdanowitz, CEO and President of Rose Community Foundation.
Thanks, people have often asked me what the connection between Rose and the Latino Community Foundation is, and I said, well, we share a culture, and that's the culture of hugging. I didn't really get it till today when I found myself hugging everybody walking in and realized something we really have in common. And I'm gonna go a little off script, Carlos, excuse me. He'll probably kill me later, but I want to be authentic. I was listening to what you said earlier, and I would just like to acknowledge the incredible leadership of Carlos Martinez. So he is bringing really to life what we envisioned 9-10 years ago when we started all this, and that it was more than a foundation or an entity. It was a movement. And Carlos, you are remarkable. Thank you so much. There is no one as passionate and as capable as Carlos. It's a pleasure to work with him, and I think we all should be very proud. So thanks. Thank you. Will you forgive me? Okay. And as Ron mentioned, in 2007, Rose Community Foundation helped launch the Latino Community Foundation, to be a resource in the community, a catalyst for positive change. Over the past 9 years, Rose has invested over $1.5 million in operations, grant making, and program support. Those are probably the best $1.5 million we invested in my term. We're proud to see the evolution of the Latino Community Foundation in Colorado and how it really is strengthening Latino communities throughout the state, and how it's developing leaders, expanding opportunities for people of all ages, and collaborating with many institutions to have collective and wide-reaching impact. I'm recalling the very first award, and it was, I think, 2 years ago when we inaugurated the Soul of Leadership Award that pays homage to a Latino leaders, or an organization that has demonstrated courageous leadership, embodies high standards of integrity, and is deeply committed to the advancement of Latinos. Today, we are honored to present this award to 2 individuals who, alone and together, demonstrate all those wonderful qualities. To Marguerite and Arnold Salazar, the Soul Award. I can exit now, maybe?
No, stay for a while. Mark. Marguerite and Arnold have been pillars. Marguerite and Arnold have been pillars in their community of Alamosa, as well as in Denver and the rest of the state. Both have committed their lives to ensure that health care is accessible to all people. They know if people have good physical and mental health, they and their families will live better lives. In 2013, Marguerite was appointed by Governor John Hickenlooper as Colorado Insurance Commissioner and oversees all of the agencies that provide insurance in the state of Colorado. She works to bring an inclusive, open, firm, and fair-minded regulatory approach to all lines of insurance under her supervision. Previously, President Barack Obama appointed her as the Regional Director for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Region 8. Prior to this appointment, she served for 20 years as President and CEO of the Valley-Wide Health Systems, a large rural community health center covering 22 counties in southern Colorado and serving over 40,000 patients throughout 26 primary health care clinics. Arnold is Executive Director of Colorado Health Partnerships, an organization covering 43 counties in Colorado with a budget of $69 million. He is responsible for coordinating the activities of the partnership of 8 mental health centers with Value Options and the Department of Health Care Policy and Financing. From 1995 to 2004, he served as Executive Director of PsyCare LLC, managing a budget of $18 million and providing services in 19 counties in southeastern Colorado. He also formerly served as Executive Director of the San Luis Valley Mental Health Center and as a paralegal investigator for the Public Defender working in the Colorado State Penitentiary. I first met Marguerite and Arnold back in the late 80s when I was in the Romer administration, and I have to tell you that I was sitting with the governor one day and he says, you know, two of the most dynamic people that I can think of in all of Colorado, not just southern Colorado, are these two individuals. And when I met them, I knew what he was talking about. These people know how to lead and they know how to serve. Their biggest contribution is giving of themselves and doing good for people. In the areas of health and mental health, they are unmatched, not only in southern Colorado, but throughout the state of Colorado. And I'm very proud to say they're my very good friends, and I want to thank them for everything they do, and we would like to award them the Soul of Leadership Award from the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado.
I think he's afraid he's going to go. So is this beautiful?
Wow.
So Latino Community Foundation of Colorado, the 2016 Soul of Leadership Award presented to Marguerite and Arnold Salazar, an inspiration to our community.
Wow. Thank you very much. Esta mañana cuando salí del apartamento me encontré con la señora que limpia el lugar y me preguntó cómo fue el fin de semana. Le pregunté por sus hijos, cómo estuvo todo. Salí de ahí y caminé por 2 bloques donde están aquí construyendo el edificio que está atrás de nosotros, donde todos los trabajadores hablan en español. todo se conducte todo en español cuando está el trabajo. Entro al restaurante donde nos vamos a juntar y en la cocina siempre todo en español. Es una cosa increíble en esta nación de que está haciendo la gente latina. Estamos levantando esta ciudad, estamos listando esta nación. Y para mí les quiero decir que es el tiempo ahorita, que salganos de la sombra, que enséñenos nuestra cultura, nuestras gentes y nuestro idioma. This morning when I walked out of the building, I always run into the lady that cleans the place, and I asked her for her family. She asked me how I was doing, how my weekend was. I walk out of my building and I go in front of the building that is being built right behind us, a building that is 17 stories, and the people that are building that building are all speaking Spanish. I walk into the restaurant where I'm going to meet, and the language in the kitchen is all about speaking Spanish. We are building this city, we are building this nation with the work that we do. And it is time for our culture, for our people, and for our workers to come out of the shadows.
Our young nephew, Placido Gomez, went to Rice University a few years ago. And while he got a degree in economics, he also fell in love with a dreamer. Together, they ended up going to Harvard University. And this spring, they both graduated with master's degrees out of Harvard. He called me after his graduation, and he said, Tia, I've proposed to Norma, she's accepted, and we want to know if we can have our wedding at your barn in Alamosa. So this past Sunday, 2 days ago, we had this fabulous wedding for them in a barn, and those kids collected people from all over the world. They had people from Houston, they had people from Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, France, Australia. And all together, those children, when the mariachi came out to sing, they all knew the words of every song, and they sang along with the mariachi. Later, when the disc jockey was going, they were dancing to Kanye West. They were two-stepping to George Strait, and they were waltzing to Frank Sinatra. These kids are not our enemies. We shouldn't be afraid of them, and we're not afraid of them. I know we aren't. They are the hope of our future.
There are two things about this award that are incredible for me. One is to be recognized by my own community. It is always an honor to get an award from the people who you know and the people that you work with, people that I've known for many, many years, so thank you. The second and probably the most important is to receive this award with the love of my life and the person that I most respect, which is my darling wife, Marguerite. We have celebrated our 41st wedding anniversary, and it is a relationship that started with the struggle for social justice, and it is really the bond that has held us together for the 41 years. There's always something bigger than what we're doing, something bigger and more important than each of us individually or each of us together. I believe that is the bond that holds this community together, that we all see something bigger than what we have within ourselves. And we always are looking to the future. We are a very hopeful people. Thank you for this award.
Thank you.
Wow, what a powerful couple. They're just amazing. 3 years ago, when we created this annual forum, we wanted it to be an event where we were telling our stories, because we knew that power comes from being able to own your own narrative. It has been my dream to have our keynote speaker, Maria Hinojosa, at our forum. Maria Hinojosa is an award-winning news anchor and reporter who covers America's untold stories and highlights today's critical issues. Since she was a young girl, she wanted to be a journalist. Inspired by her dad, who would vehemently read news magazines and watch the news every day as well as on the weekends. She has been courageous and always blazing her own path. From starting her own radio show in college to now being the anchor and executive producer of a Peabody Award-winning show that so many of us are familiar with, Latino USA, which, by the way, has been airing since 1992. And where the Peabody Award, in case you don't know, is the equivalent to the Pulitzer Prize for media, which is a big thing, and excellence in forms of storytelling. Throughout her career, so often, she was the only woman or Latino in the editorial meetings, where decisions of how stories were told of America were being negotiated, always advocating for the invisibles. In 2010, she finally did what so many of us fear. Hinojosa created her own company, the Futuro Media Group, an independent nonprofit organization producing multimedia journalism that explores and gives a critical voice to the diversity of the American experience. Quoting her words, Futuro Media Group captures voices unheard and narratives untold. And together, we tell the stories of the new America that is visible. Hinojosa's nearly 30-year history as an award-winning journalist includes reporting for PBS, CBS, NBC, CNN, NPR, Frontline, and CBS Radio, and anchoring the award-winning talk show Maria Hinojosa One-on-One. Her tenacious demeanor and sympathetic charm allows her to connect with people of all backgrounds, which is why she is able to tell the stories, making them real, making them visible. As a Latina in a competitive field predominantly run by white males, she has set herself apart from others, which is why she has won numerous awards. Not one, not two, not three, but 4 Emmys. In 2012, she won the John Chancellor Award for Excellence in Journalism, where she has been the only Latino to receive the award and one of few women. She's also won the Edward Murrow Award, honoring outstanding achievements in journalism, the Robert F. Kennedy Award for Excellence in Journalism, awarded by the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights, the Studs Terkel Community Media Award in the Chicago area, recognized by her peers, the Ruben Salazar Lifetime Achievement Award for outstanding work in journalism, and her list of honors and awards goes on and are numerous. Because throughout her career, Hinojosa has helped define the conversation about our times and our society. She is also the anchor and executive producer of the PBS show America by the Numbers with Maria Hinojosa, produced by Futuro Group, where she has informed millions about the changing cultural and political landscape in America and abroad. In 2016, Hinojosa became the host of the In the Thick, Futuro Media's new political podcast, and Humanizing America, the company's digital video series that documents stereotypes. She is author of 2 books and is currently the Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz Chair of the Latino American and Latino Studies at DePaul University in Chicago. On a more personal note, I have admired her work over the years and what she has been able to do to give voice to the invisible. She is helping to bridge a changing America in a way that is relevant and authentic. One of my favorite quotes of her is, "Who gets to tell the story matters." Join me in welcoming to the stage Maria Hinojosa.
No, please, serious. No, seriously, you guys, I haven't even said a word. It's like, can you guys come and move in with me so I can see you every morning? It'll be like, yeah, órale. No, seriously, I really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me and for inviting me. And I'm so glad that the scheduling gods agreed that I should be here. Because, this is Hispanic Heritage Month. Hysterical Hispanic Month. We're a little hysterical. Although, isn't it nice to remember that time, not too long ago, when our biggest political conversation was hashtag that Mexican thing. For the good old days when we were innocent. Okay. To the Salazars, thank you so much. I just met you, but I'm like, oh my God, I want to hang out with you guys. Llegaré. Parece que me acaban de invitar al rancho, so ahí estoy. I'll get on my boots and take a ride, I guess. But thank you so much for all that you've done. And I understand that you work a lot on mental health, and that is actually also really important to me. Well, because, it's a miracle that Latinos haven't lost it. Yes, applause. I mean, seriously, óyeme. It is a real challenge for all of us. And I don't really want to beat around the bush, because this is, frankly, for me, as a Mexican-born American citizen journalist, this has been an extraordinarily trying time for me. I'm many things, but these 4 things: Mexican, immigrant, woman, journalist, are 4 things that one of the presidential candidates running hates. So what does that do to the conversation where I have to own my narrative of who I am as an American? ¿Qué onda, paisano? What's up? My fellow New Yorker, of course, neither one of us is really from New York, but what up? Carlos, it's great. I mean, we'll talk about an amazing inspiration. Carlos, a mí me inspira muchísimo. So thank you, Carlos. So it's all about owning our power, right? That's what Carlos did. He was like, me tiro, and I'm going to own my narrative. I'm going to own my power. I'm going to own my story. I'm going to own the fact that I have a right to be here. And that's essentially what my career has been all about. But yet, if I do that in the conversation around presidential politics, somehow I'm seen as having an agenda. So I've been, those of you who follow me on social media, I don't know, sure, sometimes I'm an angry Latina around certain things, but actually, these days, the thing that has really, hay muchas, pero the one that I'm going to mention to you is the Presidential Debate Commission has really gotten under my skin. And the reason why is because what they represent, and they're my colleagues, many of them journalists, but what they represent, not to me, but to all of us, is still that gatekeeper that is saying to us, no. Yeah, no, seriously, they're like, yeah, Latino on the presidential debates. No. I'm sorry. Anybody who's been alive in the United States of America for the past 16 months knows that Mexicans, no matter what Mr. Trump wants to call us now, the Hispanic Latinos, the Latino Hispanics, the Latino, the Hispanics, whatever it is, empezó con mexicanos, and we are all Mexicanos. We know that. We are all Mexicanos. And I know that because I live in New York, donde todos nuestros amigos y compañeros puertorriqueños, estoy casada con un dominicano, los chilenos, we are all Mexican, right? But we are the focus, the attack of one president's entire platform. And we're not asked to be on the stage to ask not one question? If that does not say who gets to control the narrative, What does? Right? And so, I actually, I am an ethical journalist, so I don't make campaign contributions and I don't sign petitions, right? But you all can get in touch with the Presidential Debate Commissions and the ERS and let them know what you think. Because there was a question on the board. It was one of the top 10 questions on Sunday night to be asked in a public forum from Sophie, who wanted to know, ¿Y si deportan a mis papás, qué pasa conmigo? And they chose not to ask the question. My colleagues, with all due respect, Martha Raddatz and Anderson Cooper, both of whom I know and who I have worked with, chose not to ask the question. Who is controlling the narrative, right? And then they ask, boy, I totally went off script. I think you set the tone. And then they ask us, and they say to us, Óyeme, what's the matter with you guys anyway? I mean, you don't vote. I mean, really, why should we spend any money on you anyway? Because you guys don't vote. Because you don't include us. You know how it feels when you're ostracized and you're 10 years old and suddenly your girlfriends aren't talking to you and suddenly your mom says, pues no hables con ellas, no juegues con ellas? Well, that's what's happening to us, We're confused, right? Because you tell us you love us, because we're spending all of this money and buying your products. But then you tell us that you hate us and you want to build a wall, which already exists. By the way, does anyone remember the $28 billion that Boeing Corporation got to build the wall 10 years ago? $28 billion. Imagine if we had taken $28 billion and infused, qué sé yo, Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, LA, Denver. Coño, I'm sorry. Oof. It's different when you live in New York, okay? I'm sorry. It's Coño, un poquito de dinero para Futuro Media Group, man. Que ahí estamos, tratando, man, de sobrevivir, man. Just a little bit, Boeing, although I will not take $1 from Boeing. I swear to you, I will not take $1 from Boeing. So, who is controlling the narrative, people? Yeah. It makes me very upset. So thank you for all the love, because seriously, I totally need it. No, de verdad. We need it, right? Because what's happening now is that there is a further attempt to disempower us. Now, I was talking earlier, no me acuerdo con quién, and she was like, damn, you're so negative. And I was like, I'm gonna get to the positive part soon. So this is about getting to positive, but I have to kind of vent, because we can't deny how we're feeling, right? And I think one of the reasons why Futuro Media and Latino USA and In the Thick and America by the Numbers and Humanizing America, oh, but they were all supposed to be up there, okay. By all of our media properties, hey, thank you. Why they're having success is because we are very authentic with who we are and how we feel, and we're not afraid to talk about how we feel. So while I'm talking, you can subscribe to all of these. But In the Thick, which is our newest political podcast, which I created with all due respect to my dear colleagues on Meet the Press. I created In the Thick when, after they had me on 6 or 7 times, they went like this, boop, and dropped me. And I was like, ¿pero qué hice? ¿Qué dije? Nada. And I was really upset because, right, I was like, but I thought I was like, and then it was like, no. And then what we did is we took that anger and that frustration, we created In the Thick, which, by the way, has been featured on the front page of iTunes as new and noteworthy, and on the top political podcast. And we have sobrepasado the Meet the Press podcast. So, I'll still go back on Meet the Press. Óyeme, we should be there. We have to be there. And the fact that we're not there continues to be a problem. Okay, might have something to do with the statistic that there are 2 statistics that I'm now fascinated by. One of them being, oops, I forgot it. One of the statistics being that at this point, 13% of Latinos support Donald Trump. I'm fascinated by that statistic. The other statistic that I love, which is the positive, is that Latino USA's audience grew by 39%. Both things happening. We've got 13% of Latino and Latina voters who would support Donald Trump. And our audience growth for Latino USA was 39% in 1 year. Right, so both things are happening at the same time. And it is confusing to all of us. I want to tell you a story about what happened when I walked into National Public Radio, where I was the first Latina ever hired to work inside the editorial room. So there were, estoy segura, it's okay. I'm sure that there were Latinas and Latinos who were cleaning the headquarters. Actually, yeah, no, it's true, in 1985. But that was when I was hired as the first Latina in the editorial room. And it was kind of weird. I didn't get any of the jokes. That was a joke. And then I actually understood that I didn't want to be producing for Scott Simon, who I was producing for. And I kind of understood the importance of owning my own power and my own ability to tell these stories in my own voice, in my own narrative. And so I actually left NPR, and they were like, "What? No one quits NPR." And I was like, well, I'm quitting after a year, and I'm out, because I knew I wanted to ultimately come back as a correspondent, and I would never be allowed to do that if I stayed there working as a producer. So, you know, I was the first Latina correspondent, and so I was going to communities that we know and love, our places where we hang out, and putting them and our people and multiple people. By the way, I'm also, you know, one of my other big pieces at the time was with an Aryan Nations member. So, and at that time, they were a little invisible, not so much now. So I believe that, you know, my job is actually to see myself in everyone, and to give praise for them for telling their story with me, but to give them respect. So anyway, I become a journalist. I'm covering stories in New York. The South Bronx had a very bad heroin that hit the streets. Tango and Cash and Goodfellas, two heroin that was laced with horse tranquilizer, and people started dying in the South Bronx, and of course also in all of the wealthy suburbs of Connecticut, New Jersey, Long Island, etc. And I went to do this story, and I was in the South Bronx, which is when I learned actually from a police officer that the reason why the South Bronx had all these drugs was because they basically allowed it to happen. Because it was really difficult for people to go and buy their heroin in Harlem, which was an all-black community. But in the South Bronx, which was Puerto Rican, it was very mixed, so anybody could come in. So it was all a nasty little plan. Anyway, I get down to NPR headquarters after doing these stories from the South Bronx, and somebody who is a very famous NPR personality sees me and says, "Oh my God, Maria, oh my God, those stories that you did in the South Bronx, oh my God, they were amazing. But I have to ask you a question. Weren't you terrified to be in those communities?" And I said, actually, no. Like, I've hung out in those communities. I've lived in some of those communities. But she would have never thought to ask me if I was terrified the first day that I stepped foot into NPR, which I was, right? And all of that is to say how I understood, right, the importance of owning our voice and owning our perspective, right? And allowing ourselves to be active then. Because when you feel invisible, you don't believe that you actually can be a part of it, which is why I never thought that I could become a journalist. Okay, so I have to tell this other little quick story before I get on to some of this other part here, but it has so much to do with what I'm going to ask you to do, which probably many of you have already done, but you can do it again, which is to go deeply into our own narrative, our own personal narrative. I just happen to do 23andMe. I'm not going to reveal, but I do have my genetic makeup, and we're actually going to have everybody on Latino USA tested, and we're going to find out all of our genetic makeup if 23andMe gives us the stuff for free. So if you know anyone, 23andMe, let them know. But when I was writing my book, I ended up asking my mom the question of so what was it like when we came? And you would have thought that me, already, a journalist, would have already had that story, but I didn't. And this is the story that my mom told, which again, for me, is a way of sharing when you learn a story about your own life and you own your own narrative, what it can do to you. So Dad got a job at the University of Chicago. He was from Tampico, and he had a dream to be a medical doctor devoted to research. That was his thing. He loved looking into a microscope. So he got hired by the University of Chicago. He becomes a citizen almost immediately, moves, and like 4 months later, Mom, who is smaller than me, so like 4'11", with 4 kids under the age of 7, and I was like 2. So just like that notion of my mom being on a plane with 4 kids under the age of 7 is already like props. Like she's like 1, like who does that, right? We get to immigration checkpoint in Dallas. The plane landed in Dallas. We switched planes going to Chicago. So it was in Dallas that we were doing immigration with a very tall immigration officer who, saw my mom, saw all of our green cards we had. They were actually green. And he looked at everything and then he said to my mother, well, ma'am, everything here is in order. It is proper in order. There is only one problem. You and the 3 children here will be able to come into the United States, but the little baby, me, will not be able to go into the United States. She's going to have to stay here in quarantine because we see a strange rash and we do not want her to contaminate anyone. So your little baby's going to have to stay here, but you all can move on ahead. And my mother was like, ¿qué? And so there's the beauty in learning to trust that inner voice, the one that we squash with all of our own insecurities of not being good enough. And there is something that my mom taught me, which is she has always been in control of her inner voice and even of her petite power. So somewhere from down here, the voice came up and she actually grabbed the arm of the immigration agent and said, sir, my name is Berta Hinojosa and my husband is Dr. Raul Hinojosa and he works at the University of Chicago. And if we need to, we will call the president of the University of Chicago to tell you that my children have to come into this country because we have to go to see my husband who's at the University of Chicago. Sir, do you understand, sir? And he said, yes, ma'am, come on in. Come on in. And so that's how I got into the United States. She was making all that stuff up about calling the president, but it worked, right? Mom also, even though we were not citizens, my dad was a citizen, and by the way, highly criticized. Por mis paisanos, el vendido, el gringo, el gabacho, etc., which I had to grow up with and which we all live with, which makes it difficult for us to become American citizens, which I had to do, but do it. By the way, do it yesterday. If you have a green card, I'm sorry, commercial break, you are not protected from deportation. I'm sorry to tell you, perdón, hate to ruin the lunch. If you have a green card and you think you are safe, I am sorry, you are not. Don't ask me to take you to the detention centers right here in your state that are run by private prison companies. So please, anyone who can or who you know, help them to become citizens. Anyway, but we weren't, and Mom still pulled me out of school to go see a demonstration in 1968 because she understood that this is what democracy looked like. So do you see how everything that we do, how we relate to our new country, how we're explaining this to our children matters, because that changed me forever. I understood that term that everybody uses now, civic engagement, at a very young age. And it looks like one of the reasons why Latinos and Latinas have a lower participation rate may have something to do with the fact that we are not talking politics at the breakfast table, at the lunch table, at the dinner table when our kids are young. So for those of you who have them, please start. And for your grandkids, please start. This is our country and our politic, and we need to talk about it at home all the time. But even though we were actively engaged, we were going to protests, and we were consuming the media, we had the television on, we watched 60 Minutes and Meet the Press, and my dad read Time magazine, and it was part of who we were as this new Mexican immigrant American family. And yet, I never saw anyone who looked like me, ever. Not giving the news or not being a story told about them. And so I did feel invisible, and that invisibility made me believe that I never could. That I never could, in fact, do this. And the only reason why I ended up going to that very first job internship was because someone forced me to apply to NPR. I didn't think I was good enough. I try to tell my daughter and my son, who's 21 and 18, tampoco, it doesn't get to a place where all of a sudden it's like nirvana. Oh man, I knew it would come, everything's chill. No. And I'm sorry for Latinos and Latinas and for Latinx. Vamos a ver. Because it's another ball game now, right? And competition can be really difficult. But okay. All I'm saying is that challenges continue to appear, right, in our stories. And so I did go take an interview with, I'm not going to name them, but they're the most important investigative television news program in the country. And they basically said, we love you, but could you wait until one of these guys gets sick or dies, and then we can talk? And that is the thing, because I was asked to talk about why I created Futuro Media Group, that, again, from the rechazo came the all right, I'm going to create my own nonprofit. I had never run a nonprofit. I learned how to raise money while I was working for a show called Now on PBS, created by Bill Moyers, and I understood that. And to be honest with you, I'm a journalist in my core. That is what I do, but now I also run a nonprofit, and I've come to understand, and that's why I'm so happy to be here and so appreciative of the work that you have done, because you are changing lives in Colorado. I totally know it, because maybe what you don't know in the world of philanthropy is that only one penny of every philanthropic dollar goes to a Latino-run or Latina-run nonprofit. 1 penny of every philanthropic dollar, and it's been that way for decades. And only 3 pennies of every dollar goes to support independent media. And I guess I would say that if there was ever a time where we needed independent media, it would be now. Yeah. Because, I don't know, corporate media, suddenly I turned on the television on, what was it, Monday morning, and they were like, yeah, no, we think he may have even won the debate. And I'm like, where do I live? What does that look like? I'm actually going to talk for 1 second about what happened at the debate, because, one of the there were many important questions, but the young Muslim woman who asked the question about Islamophobia, and the fact that neither Anderson nor Martha interrupted and said, could you answer her question, please? And the reason, and we talk about this in the thick, is because, again, we want them to know what we're feeling. We have to know what they're feeling. But we want them to, and it's no saben what it is to be a Muslim in America today, what it is to be a Mexican in the US today, a woman, someone disabled. Óyeme. So, yeah, she did not get to ask her question. The joy that I have and why you feed me, and then I take this back to our offices in Harlem. By the way, we have a very robust internship program, so if you have people who have a place to live in New York and they want to work in journalism, please, they can apply online. That's a really important part of the work that we do. It's not just about me or what I'm doing, it's really about the next gen, which is why it's all about opening the doors and training them to be strong enough, because we're getting poached. BuzzFeed poached us, and then she left, and then she came back. So, we are creating that next generation of journalists who has the ability to own their power and their narrative. What does it look like, though, like on the reels? I'm blessed to do this every single day, right? We work on these properties every single day. But I'm going to tell you just one story that we did that is really matters to me. If you haven't heard it, it's called The Strange Death of Jose de Jesus. You can get it because you can pull out your phones right now and subscribe to Latino USA on iTunes. I'm giving you permission to pull out your phones and subscribe. We did over a year investigation into the death of one Mexican immigrant in a detention center in Eloy, Arizona. He died the same week that Sandra Bland died. Everybody knows Sandra Bland's name, and no one, well, now they do, know Jose de Jesus. We were told when it first came upon us, this story, that he had committed suicide by swallowing his knee sock. And I said, that's impossible. That's impossible. Is that me? Jeez, I thought I had put it on vibrate. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sister. That's a sister. So it turned out Jose de Jesus actually did commit suicide. He did swallow his sock. He was supposed to be being watched, and he still was able to swallow his sock. And when they found him face down, immobile, clearly not a threat to anyone, it took them about 7 minutes, which sounds like nada, but when somebody's dying, to go get a shield, you know, that big plastic shield like for riots, to go get a shield to be able to unlock his door, to be able to walk in the shield and put it on top of him when he's on his stomach to begin with, to hold him down, because the first thing they were going to do was to handcuff him, even though, and we got the video, not because the federal government gave it to us, but because the small little police department in Eloy, Arizona got a Freedom of Information Act request, and they said, sure, we'll give you that. Boom, we got the video, and so we saw the horror of his last minutes. That's one story, one narrative of one invisible human being. And because of the work of independent media, we were able to tell that story. Because of the fact that we decide what stories matter. We get to decide. That's why that story got on the air. And it doesn't bring any comfort to his family, but it does make us understand just what is going on in privately run immigrant detention centers and government-run ones as well. And just so we're clear, because I know I'm watching my time, just so we're clear, basic due process and constitutional rights are being tested on the backs of people who the only thing that makes them different is that they were not born in this country, like me. That's the only difference. Unless you're unlucky and you're an American citizen and end up in one, which can happen. But the only difference is because we weren't born in this country. So what does that say about us? That we're living in that time when we have people who, by the way, look like this. If we just took off all of the pretty clothes and put on orange jumpsuits, we could all be in the detention center. And we would be hungry, because they don't serve protein. Protein? Protein? Do you want to know what the size of the walk-in freezer was in Eloy, Arizona Detention Center, where they hold 1,500 people and where they showed us that they served chicken that day? The walk-in closet was about the size of this little tiny corner over there. They don't serve meat. How do we feel about that? What does that say about who we are? To flip that narrative of powerlessness, what we do is we tell our stories that you love, thank God. Some of them are difficult, like the hidden history of the American Southwest, where we talked about the lynching of Mexicans, which exists, or it did exist, and I don't know right now, but it is a part of our history that we don't really talk about. But we also do stories like the hidden history of hip hop, or the hidden history of Latinos in rock and roll, which was amazing, by the way, or Latino Asian, or Jewish Latino, or our Brazilians Latinos, which actually got like tons of love out there. But we tell these stories of our own narratives with authenticity, right? With love and authenticity. And the cool thing about being la jefa, la pequeña jefa, la LPJ, is that I can make decisions like in my newsroom that say, the term minority is not used on our air. And we don't use the term illegal to describe a human being. What we do recognize is something that you are living with right here in Denver and Colorado, right? We recognize the power of the complexity of the Latino experience, right? So that is part of who we are now. Majority Mexicano, but yes, it's true. My family was like, ¿Te vas a casar con un dominicano? ¿Cómo? You know, they were like freaking out because I married a man from the Dominican Republic. Then they realized that he knows Juan Luis Guerra and that they're very good friends. And they were like, ay, sí, cásate. I know. But all of who we are, in all of our complexity of the Latino experience, of our mestizaje, or of the diversity of the countries that we come from, is something that is your strength now here in Colorado. It is your strength. And in fact, it's your responsibility to make sure that this new diversity of Latinos and Latinas in this place actually is included and brought out and heard and seen. Because where we are showing up, Latinos and Latinas, is everywhere. What day is it today? A week and 2 days ago, no me acuerdo, whatever. In the last 2 weeks, I was in North Dakota at the Standing Rock protests. And yeah, we're reporting about it. We got a grant and we were able to fund a trip out there. Standing Rock is led by our indigenous First Nations people. But everybody who's in the protest kind of looks like this too. Huge Latino-Latina presence of people who are identifying with their own indigenous roots or with our founding fathers and mothers of this country. And it appears the largest gathering of indigenous people in protest, perhaps ever in the world, certainly in the last 50 years. Much of it represented by Latin America. So we are present everywhere. We are no longer, well, we are invisible, but we're not. And every one of us plays that story, plays into that story. What you're doing in the conversations that you're having at home, in the conversations that you're having with your neighbors and your friends, people right here in your communities, some of whom are living very empowered and some of whom are living in fear because they're getting ready to go and knock on the doors tomorrow morning, right here in Colorado, to detain more people, to fill up the detention centers that are making profits for the people in the private prison industry. So let's just end with acknowledging that we have extraordinary challenges. Sometimes they feel agobiante, right? But look where we are, you guys. Look where we are. Walking here through all of this art. My husband happens to be an artist. You know, what art can do to us to open up our hope and our possibilities. And the fact that we are the winners. Nosotros ahorita aquí somos los ganadores. No matter the challenge that we're facing, somos los ganadores, man. And so to operate out of gratitude, out of tremendous gratitude, and I think a really important word for our future that Latinos and Latinas know well. Compasión. Compasión. With each other, because we're all losing it, right? A lot of fighting going on in people's homes, a lot of stuff. Kids bringing that stuff into their high school, you know, so trying to find the compassion that we need in our homes for our families and our friends, and to be filled with gratitude. You know, everybody said, "Ay, Maria, you know, how do you do what you do?" I was like, I don't know, I exercise, I, you know, pump iron, and I, you know, do boot camp, and that's what I do, right? And this year was the first year that I started meditating. So, yeah, and the meditation really helps with the gratitude. And we know that well. So let's move by owning our own power, our own stories, with a tremendous amount of compassion for those who have fear of us. And we're like, what are you afraid of? Un poquito de compasión, right? Because this is the future and they don't know this. So let's help them, right? And own your power, just like you've been doing for the past 3 years at the foundation. Bravo. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Isn't she wonderful? Listen. Gracias.
Thank you.
Wow, powerful. Identity. It contributes to your self-confidence. It shapes how you connect with your community, with your world, how you foster relationships, determines your risk tolerance. It becomes the whole of who you are. Through our various grant-making opportunities, we help shape identity, leadership, and civic engagement because we know that if we're going to help shape a diverse and inclusive society, accessibility to personal development is essential. Last year, we gave a grant through our Young Latino Philanthropist Giving Circle to a small club at the Colorado Mountain College in Rifle, Glenwood Springs that supports first-generation students. Our grant making is made possible through you, our investors, corporations, and foundations. 100% of what you give for grant making is invested back into the community. Here to share with you more about how your investment impacted 12 students this past summer is Hetzi Hammond, Student Support Services, College Navigator at the Colorado Mountain College. But before she begins, I just want to say how impressed I am with Hetzi. At the age of 15, her mother brought her to the United States from Veracruz, Mexico. For her, it was challenging. New language, new culture, new traditions. She wanted to go back to Veracruz. Her mother pushed her and reminded her that they came here for a better life. She graduated high school, and despite all her challenges, she earned 2 AA degrees, paying out-of-state tuition. And when she went on to earn her BA in 2013, the asset bill passed, thanks to some of our legislators, which allowed her to achieve her dream of her bachelor's degree. She wants to continue her education with a master's in psychology and support students in the Mountain Valley community to fulfill their educational dreams. Please help me and welcome Hetzi Hammond, who's here to talk to you about how your investment makes a difference in our community.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Last year, I started to work with a group of first-generation Latino students in Rifle, Colorado. I came to know the students very well, to the point that they were calling me big sister, the babysitter, or even a mom. Nothing wrong with that, it's just the bond that we create as Latinos and how we show affection. What I realized is that despite their obstacles, they were fascinated about education and passionate about giving to their community. They would come to me and ask if I knew of any volunteer opportunities in our valley. Without me having to push them, they started volunteering at different places, such as the Rifle Animal Shelter or at the Extended Table, which is an organization that feeds people in need. One day, one of my students, Larissa Martinez, said, "Hetze, I wish I was a philanthropist. I wish I had enough money to give to those places in need, but I'm not rich. I can't do that." I knew that my students wanted to give back to the community and embrace that thought of being a philanthropist, but I didn't know where to start. They saw opportunities to be exposed to bigger things, to be able to think like leaders and see other Latinos in positions of power. A month later, my boss received an email with an opportunity to apply for a grant to the Young Latino Philanthropists, a program with the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado. She learned about it because she attended last year's forum. We applied for a grant to expose our students to Latino leaders, have them learn more about giving back and being civically engaged. Last December, just before Christmas, I received a call from Mitchell Gonzalez. He said, "Congratulations, you have been selected as one of the grantees for the Young Latino Philanthropists." And that day, I called my students, all of them, and I said, "Hey, come be a leader with me, and let's meet your future role models." Thanks to the foundation, we were able to bring 12 students and myself to Denver to explore leadership, culture, and civics in a larger framework. We have the amazing opportunity to meet with Representative Dominique Moreno, who taught us about civic engagement and leadership, as well as what we as young Latinos can do to work and serve in our communities. We also got to hear from Jordan Sowers, council member from North Glen, who inspired us to think big, and we even got a tour of the state capitol, a symbol that we too have a voice in state government, even though we might be 100 miles away. Throughout the 2 days, we met some incredible leaders such as Carlos Martinez, Dr. Deborah Ortega, and Dr. Ramona Beltran, both from the social work program at the University of Denver, and Ben Gonzalez, who started his own business. We also met with Adriana Barca, who along with Don Vicente took us on a tour of El Movimiento, the Chicano movement at the Colorado History Museum, which helped us understand the roots of the Chicano experience and cultural identity. We even got to come here to the Denver Art Museum, where we learned about how to enrich our lives through the arts. Not only did these experiences have such a great impact on us, but so did meeting the rest of the Young Latino Philanthropists members, who taught us an important lesson. Never lose vision of who you are and where you came from. Always find a way to give back that is meaningful to others, and every single act of kindness makes a difference in someone's life. The 2-day experience transformed us. It gave us the confidence and the motivation to continue our education so that we too can make a difference in our community. We are a small group of young Latinos in a small town called Rifle. We thought that people would never be interested in investing in us. We were proved wrong. You did. The Latino Community Foundation believed in us through your generosity. You gave us an opportunity to unleash our potential and know that there are people out there who want to see us succeed. We must come together as a generous community and give back. If we can help our community, who will? There are hundreds of other young Latinos who seek an opportunity like the one we received. It wasn't a big grant that we received, but it transformed 12 Latinos to think differently, to act in their community differently, and to see themselves as a leader. Look at me today. I never thought I would be speaking in front of such a distinguished audience in my life. If we're to become a strong, united community, we must support each other. I ask you today to reflect, commit, and add on your generosity, and give back so that we can offer hundreds of more Latinos an opportunity to play a leadership role in shaping a great Colorado for everyone. Thank you.
Just stay right here. Just move over. Thanks, Hetzi. But I can just say it was really amazing to be able to host Hetzi and the 12 students who came out. And I think what continues to touch me, I'm going to get emotional, because I do, is the part when she said nobody would invest in us, or she didn't think that anybody would invest in them. That to me, I guess it's very personal because that's what I thought when I was growing up. And so it hits home, but it also hits kind of like what we have to do as a community to support folks and give people opportunities, because that's all they're asking for. They're not asking for anything big or anything, they're just asking for opportunities. And what I'm going to ask of you today, and I'm not shy about this, because it's not about me. We have one of our sponsors today, Ready Foods, who said, you know what you did for Hetzi and those 12 students was amazing. Can we do more of that in the coming year? And she said, I will give you a $5,000 challenge grant to be able to go ahead and raise money at today's event, to be able to do more of Hetzi, more of her 12 students, not just from Marfa, Glenwood Springs, but reaching out to Greeley, reaching out to the mountain region, reaching out to Alamosa, reaching out to Pueblo, reaching out through many communities through this country to be able to give people an opportunity to see themselves as a leader. So what I'm going to ask today, right now, is your support in helping me match that $5,000. Again, this is not for me. This is for people like Hetzi and her students who are just looking for an opportunity. So thank you very much to the Abarca family and Ready Foods for giving us a matching grant. And I am going to ask, is there anybody here who would like to go ahead and, if we could end this pretty quickly or whatever, would like to match $5,000? Anybody would like to match $5,000? Anybody would like to go ahead and give $1,000? So we have Gary back over there. We have Tony in the back. We have Ron over here. Anybody else who would want to give $1,000? How about $500? Okay. We have Rosemary. We have the Salazars. Anybody? We have Sue Demore. Anybody at 500? How about 250? Anybody at 250? Angela, Melanie. I don't know your name, but thank you. Okay. Oh, and Patricia Barella, thank you. Yes. How about $100? How many of you can do $100? Oh, Anna Joe, sorry, 250, Anna Joe, sorry about that. So, oh, Rick too, sorry about that. God, I better need better glasses. Okay. Anyone else at 250? How about anyone? Oh, we have someone else at the back at 250 also. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Elsa is at 250. Okay. And how about $100? How many of you can help us with $100? You have envelopes in your packet. Just fill out your envelope, and on your way out, you can just drop your envelope at the front desk. You can see Priscilla over there. She will go ahead and happy to take that, or Vicente, back over there, or Luis also will be able to help you. Thank you very much for coming to our forum. Okay, this ends the formal part of our forum today. I can't thank you enough for being here with us and sharing this day, and I hope that you were able to get something out of it today. We try really hard to make this event very relevant to all of you, and where you can really be able to connect, learn, and stretch your mind. But the day is not over yet. We have a new initiative that we're launching today called Latinas Lead. Latinas Lead is about developing a pipeline for Latinas of all ages to be able to flex their leadership, flex their potential, and be able to contribute back to our community. So I invite you all to go to Schlesman Hall, just straight down this hallway, for a dessert reception where Maria will give us some other words of inspiration. And after our reception, we will kick off the formal program of Latinas Lead. Again, thank you very much for making this event a success and for your participation with the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado.
I just wanted to second that and highly encourage you to go over across the street so that we can network and you can learn more about Latinas Lead. I am one of the committee members for that, so please join us. Thank you very much.
Nancy, you did a wonderful job. You did a wonderful job.
Woo! So amazing to see the women here today for our first Power Summit. First, I'd like to thank our premier sponsor of Forum, AT&T, as well as our sponsor for our 2017 Power Summit. So please join me in giving a round of applause for AT&T. Now, of course, before we jump into our program, we would like to just offer a bit more space for our special guest, Michelle Moreno, from the White House Initiative for Educational Excellence here that was able to join us, and we'll take back all of our great work here in Colorado to the White House. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Michelle Moreno one more time.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you so much for your efforts and for elevating the voice of the Latina. I don't know about you all, but I am super jazzed, energized, and excited to go back to DC and share all of the wonderful things that I've heard today, and to take your stories back with me of the young ladies that I met that are in high school, ready to go to college, the teachers and the administrators that were here with them, also the college counselors and advisors that were with them. Thank you for the work that you do. Just again, if you want to go to our website, we have resources for you. And then also, we'll let you know about the Latina Summit. I know that the work that you're doing here is just going to be magnified, and we definitely want to share your stories with the rest of the country. So thank you. Continue to do the great work that you're doing. Inspire another Latina. So that's my takeaway from you, and have a great rest of the summit. Thank you.
Great. And now it's my pleasure to welcome you once again to our first annual Power Summit. This is LCFC's newest initiative aimed at strengthening the leadership pipeline for Latinas through grant making and scholarships. Our goal here is to strengthen the leadership pipeline of not only women ready to run for office, but women who are ready to join as leaders in the public and private sector. We know that leadership doesn't exist in a vacuum, and so that applies to all spectrum and every industry that we have. As I was talking to folks across the room over at our reception a little bit ago, one thing that was really clear to me was that we just have the most inclusive space here. We have students, we have leaders, we have emerging leaders, we have folks from nurse partnerships, we have, I think I saw the U.S. Forest Department here. It's pretty incredible to see the power in the room when we look around and see who's joined us today. I can't talk about this initiative without first talking about the origins of the Latino Community Foundation. 10 years ago, we had a group of 20 families who came forward and said that it was time that Colorado had its own Latino Community Foundation. So it's not a surprise that an initiative like Latinas Lead would be housed within our doors. It's incredible to see the power of philanthropy alive and well. Through our work, like the Young Latino Philanthropists, we see that folks are able to make grants to organizations and individuals who are creating change in community. And so through Latinas Lead, we'll also be able to make grants to support the individual leadership growth of our emerging leaders in our community, and make grants to special projects and organizations that are specifically working on leadership projects in the community. So the work of developing leaders is ever evolving. It extends day by day by connecting one another and offering support for Latinas to attend trainings so that we can be stewards of leadership in our community. In fact, I myself was a scholarship recipient of LCFC and was able to attend a New American Leaders training, which forever has changed my vision and leadership style for civic engagement. We would like to be able to see more of our emerging leaders be able to attend trainings like that. So when we think about data and how this initiative came about, we started with numbers. We started with Michelle's report on the White House Initiative for Educational Excellence of Hispanics, is such a long name. And one thing was clear, we looked at their data, but then we reached out to our very good friend, Angeles Ortega from US Census Bureau. Where are you, Angeles? Right here. We owe so much of our initiative to this woman who provided us with some amazing data. And she said, make data sexy. And so I said, I don't know if I can do that. But what we did find was that we were able to really look at the numbers of Latinas in Colorado. So when we think that there's never enough to do, the numbers speak for themselves. There are almost 500,000 of us here in the state of Colorado. About 124,000 of our young girls are enrolled in K-12 education. And another, let me get my numbers straight, we have another 135 Latina millennials who will determine this year's election, I might add. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then we have about another 137,000 of us who are in the workforce, who are leading right now, or who wish to lead with our community standing behind us. So I, could not have done, all of this research without the help and support of a leadership committee who is standing with me, women who represent every industry from across the spectrum, from policy to education to public trustees. We have folks who are also from the private sector. Just every kind of business is represented, and we hope that that will continue to grow as we grow our leadership committee. But one thing is clear. We have work to do across the state. If there are 500,000 of us, we know that our reach is not getting far enough to the mountain region of Colorado, to the western slope, to southern Colorado. That's why it was so important for us to make sure that our leadership committee represented every part of the state. And this afternoon, I'm pleased to report that we now have a mountain cohort of leaders who are ready to join us as well. So this initiative sort of came about with some thinking and analysis of our Latinas Represent work, which showed us that our community was yearning for connection and yearning for a way to build deep relationships in a really inclusive manner, where no one is left behind and all of our issues are represented. So the women that came together back in May sat in a room, and we sort of started with this big sandbox, as one of them referred to it. And then we were able to sit down another couple meetings later and come up with a plan. So through our grant making, we'll be able to focus on a group of young demographic women who are in their professional growth stage in terms of acquiring education. We'll be able to support emerging leaders who are mid-career through scholarships to attend leadership development programs. And we'll build connection like we did today in the reception amongst all of us so that we can rise together. I'd like to take a minute to now introduce a group of leaders who came together just like 10 years ago when the Latino Community Foundation was started to strategize and figure out how we can strengthen leadership pathways across the state. So it's my pleasure to introduce my steering committee, and if you could please stand, that would be wonderful. We have Adriana Abarca, longtime LCFC board member. Catherine Archuleta, who's not with us today. Judy Diaz-Bonaquisti, Vice President of Enrollment and Administration at Community College of Colorado. Susana Cordova, Deputy Superintendent, Denver Public Schools. Maria de Cambra, City Councilor, City of Westminster. Crisanta Duran, Majority Leader, Colorado House of Representatives. Andrea Wendelman, co-founder of Be Visible, who you'll hear from in just a bit. Marley Fidillo, who is a Latinas Increasing Political Strength alumni, and she's here with us as well. Monica Marquez, Angel Perez, Executive Director of VORP Denver. Annette Quintana, Chief Executive Director of Istonish. Rosemary Rodriguez, Chief of Staff, U.S. Senator Michael Bennett. Jordan Sowers, City Councilor, City of North Glen. Susie Velasquez, Public Trustee of Weld County. It's our Northern Colorado representative. Sonia Ulibari, Chief Executive Officer of Girls, Inc. And Marguerite Salazar, our sole award winner from today, State of Colorado, Commissioner of Insurance, representing Southern Colorado. Please join me in giving them a big round of applause. And now a few words from someone that I consider to be the madrina of this initiative, somebody who sat with me in a coffee shop and helped me think through the leadership matrix that we had in our state and came up with a name that needed to be bold and fierce and unapologetic. And that's how we ended up with the name Latinas Lead. So Rosemary, as many of you know, is a lifetime advocate for women and girls in our community. I call her the great connector through her Cafecito group, and just somebody who leads with grace and humility, who I admire very much. Please welcome Rosemary Rodriguez.
I'll be super brief because I'm dying to hear the TEDx-style speeches we're about to hear. But Nicole and I, in talking about the leadership train, talked a little bit about Cafecito. Many of you have been there. If you haven't been there, you're welcome at any time. It's very informal. I'm so grateful that we have formal leadership programs to develop and nurture our future leaders. But what we do at Cafecito is just support each other, and we talk. And I heard a very good expression of what it means, I think, what Cafecito means. We all have, not all of us, most of us have two arms, and one is to reach forward, to pull ourselves forward, and the other one is to reach back and pull the woman behind us back. And that is what Cafecito is to me. We meet in downtown Denver. You don't have to live in downtown Denver to have a Cafecito. You can have one in Rifle. You can have one in Colorado Springs. You can have one in Greeley. And what started in Denver 25 years ago, a group of 4 women just getting together to support each other in a workplace where we were the only ones. It was, at the time, it was Black women and Latinas. Can create that space where you're safe, where you're supported, where you can support others. Whatever you need that day, you can get from friendship. And please, please start these informal groups, and then they're going to become formal in very, very meaningful ways. One of you will run for office. One of you will aspire to lead an organization, and that's how it begins. And 25 years later, you're going to think, wow, all that came from the simple act of being together and sharing a cup of coffee. Enjoy.
Thank you, Rosemary. And now I'm going to turn it over to Annette Quintana, CEO of Astonish, a technology company that does work here in the Denver metro area, across the state and internationally. Annette is one of those women that is bold, fierce, and unapologetic. So to have her on our leadership committee is a real treat, to hear her just break it down for us and, keep us on track with what we need to do. So I appreciate her words of advice. Annette's been a lifelong also a mentor for several women throughout her career, and an advocate for women to enter non-traditional fields like technology and construction. So please join me in welcoming Annette Quintana.
Thank you, Nicole. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Lisa Garcia Quiroz, our next speaker. Lisa is president of the Time Warner Foundation, Senior Vice President of the Corporate Responsibility and Chief Diversity Officer of Time Warner, Inc. Lisa ensures that Time Warner's investments in people, community, and content reflect a leading media company where the best talent thrives and its content resonates with increasingly diverse global audiences. Lisa tied Time Warner's diversity and philanthropic efforts to the company's business goals and launched the Incubator 150, which develops fresh stories that strategically place the company ahead of media and demographic trends. Lisa previously launched 2 businesses at Time Inc., People en Español, the best-selling Hispanic magazine in the United States, wow, and Time for Kids, which won numerous awards for its journalism. Through various cultural investment initiatives, Lisa develops and connects diverse artists while empowering them to disrupt the traditional model of content creation and delivery. During Lisa's tenure at Time Warner's headquarters, the company's efforts have also received significant accolades from such organizations as Diversity Inc. and Catalyst for its development of women leaders, the Human Rights Campaign for its leading efforts to foster an inclusive workplace. Today, Time Warner's overall workforce mirrors the country's demographics, and its workforce is measurably engaged, productive, and happy. Lisa currently serves as a chairperson to the Hispanic Scholarship Fund and is the former chairperson of the Corporation for National and Community Service, the National and Community Service Board, a post to which she was appointed by President Obama. Please join me in giving Lisa Garcia Quiroz a warm welcome.
She's just a girl and she's on fire, hotter than a fantasy.
I'm considerably shorter than you, so I had to adjust this. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I know that you had a very productive, inspiring day, and I always consider that 3 o'clock spot the sort of time when you can use a shot of espresso. So I'm hoping that at least over the next 20 minutes or so that we'll get energized all over again. First, I wanted to start by thanking Carlos Martinez so much for this kind invitation. It's always great for me to be here in Colorado. And of course, I have, strong roots to Colorado, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And it's also terrific to see here old friends and mentors and former bosses like Juana Bordas, who's here. And also, it's great to see Patricia Barrera. So I can't thank you enough. My parents live in Colorado, and my dad is here with me today, Armando, and my stepmom, Irene Ibarra, who I believe was the first recipient of the Sol Award 2 years ago, and it's great to see her here today. She was one of the first Latinas to hold statewide office here under Governor Romer, and has really been a strong and constant advocate for women and for Latinas especially. So it means a lot for me to have her here today. So thank you, Irene. So I want to start off because, the company writes these bios, and it's a lot of words, but I want to start off by telling you a little bit about, who I am, and a little bit about my journey here. So I was born in 1961 to a Mexican-American dad and to a Puerto Rican mother. I was the unexpected pregnancy that led to a very quick wedding, and then me born 8 months, although for years I thought it was 9 months, right, until I did the math. I was born. My father, who still is a brilliant intellectual, had graduated from Brooklyn College, had started graduate studies in political science, and that's when he found out that my mother was pregnant with me. And he told his parents that he had failed out of school, but in reality, he left because I was soon coming. And it wasn't until weeks later that when my grandparents got his sort of first report card that they found out that he had had straight A's. So in reality, my father should have been the first Ivy League graduate of our family, but because of me, he wasn't. They were very young. They had their first apartment in public housing, and I grew up on Staten Island, New York. Now, for those of you that probably are like, where is Staten Island? It is one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. And Staten Island is the 5th almost forgotten borough, because the truth of the matter is that when people think of New York City, you think of this great melting pot and immigrants coming from all over the world and coming through New York City on their way to the rest of the country. And in reality, Staten Island's roots are working class, largely Italian and Irish. Within a 1-mile radius of where we eventually bought our first home were 3 Latino families. That includes ours. There was a Cuban family down the block and a Puerto Rican family on the other side of the park. So I grew up in what was basically a working class, non-college area but not with very many Latinos. But the universe conspired to give me an incredible family to help prepare me for my journey. I had a Mexican, fiercely Mexican grandmother who was widowed early, when I was about 2 or 3 years old, and then she came to live with us. And there was no one more Mexican and American than my grandmother, who loved FDR, who thinks that this is the greatest country in the world, but who also listened to rancheras, taught me everything I knew about Mexican music and Mexican history and Mexican culture. And in fact, I was the first grandchild, but with each grandchild, she would do these epic trips to Mexico, where she would take us for the entire summer when we turned 10. And you know what I'm saying by epic trip, like she would have those immense suitcases that were like as big as I am right now, and we'd go off to Mexico for an entire summer, live with a cousin, and then we'd take buses all over the country, because she said you have to know who you are and where you come from. You can never forget. And she instilled in me extraordinary pride for that part of me. And it's important because I was in a city where there were not very many Mexicans. And in fact, you couldn't buy tortillas in a store. She would go to a place on 14th Street to buy her Mexican products. She would have a restaurant not far from where I live now that would sell her tortillas by the dozen. But it was hard to be Mexican in New York City. And my mother came from a big, bold Puerto Rican family. And so from her, I had a very strong sense of being Puerto Rican. My mother had actually been born and raised in Puerto Rico. She spoke Spanish almost exclusively to me growing up. And half of her siblings were in New York and the other half were in Puerto Rico. And in fact, our summer vacations were spent going back to Puerto Rico. She grew up on a farm in the middle of the island. And that was our sort of summer experience, being around cows and figuring out that the chicken on your table was the one whose neck had been twisted a couple of hours before. So I grew up, in spite of the fact that I was in an area that will likely vote for Donald Trump, all right? That's where I grew up. But I grew up with an incredible sense of being Latina, an incredible sense of the richness of that culture. So for me, growing up, that was incredibly important. I should also mention, what could it have been like? My parents, as a sign of how Mexican we were, as I said, we lived in a primarily white neighborhood. This is in the late 60s. And my father decided to buy a ceramic Mexican with the sombrero and a donkey and put it right on our lawn, okay? As if they didn't know we were Mexican already. As if they didn't know. So having grown up, to give you a sense, and then in 1975, when I was 14 years old, my parents decided to follow my uncle, who had moved to Pueblo, Colorado 2 years before. I can't even tell you, for this New York City kid, what Pueblo, Colorado looked like to me. I remember thinking, oh my God, so many people could live here if they wanted to, because there was so much open space, right? Everybody could have a big backyard. But my parents moved here, and they thought initially that it would be a temporary assignment and that, it would be an opportunity for them to see another part of the country. And at that moment in time, we made the decision, and I stayed in New York with my grandmother. I was about to start high school. I had gotten into a terrific high school on Staten Island. It was an all-girls Catholic school. I was very excited about it. And so since they didn't know whether it would be a 1-year or a 2-year thing, I stayed in New York. but my summers were spent here in Colorado. And I say that because my ties to Colorado go all the way back to 1975 when they first moved here. My first job was at a Target, on Kipling. My parents had moved to Lakewood. I had the opportunity this summer before I went off to college to work for Tim Wirth, who was a congressman in Jefferson County and later became a senator. And I remember as a kid, I was processing black lung disease claims. And again, for a kid from New York City to sit across from someone who had terrible lung disease because of their job, it was an incredible and profound experience for me. And so this became part of my story. Colorado became part of my story. And what's really important about this is that it's also the place where I became part of a community of Latina leaders. It was the first place where I had the opportunity to meet women like Patricia, to meet women like Rosemary, to meet incredible women in this state. But perhaps what was most special for me was actually during my time when I was in college. It was the first summer after my first year in school. And let me tell you a little bit about sort of going to college. I, as I said before, went to a competitive all-girls Catholic high school. I thought, I'm a pretty good student. I've been involved in extracurriculars. I'm going to apply to a good place. And I applied to 3 schools. Georgetown, because that's where a good Catholic girl went, if you went to my school. I applied to Barnard, because that's where you went if you were a really good student in New York City. And I applied to Harvard. And I got into Harvard, and without thinking a whole lot, said, okay, well, I'm going to Harvard. And I remember stepping onto that campus on September 7th, 1979, and looking around and saying, oh my God, what did I just do? All the pictures were of old white men on the walls, right? Everything was steeped in tradition, even the cafeteria. They had us eat things that I had never heard of in my life, like scrod. It's a type of fish in Boston. It was such a profound and jarring change for me. And I didn't go. Remember, I thought I went to a really good school, but I didn't go to Andover or Exeter or to one of the really elite private schools that existed in New England. And so for me, that first year was so hard, but I found my strength in the Latino community. There were 35 Mexican Americans in my class. There were 35. By the end of the 4 years, 25 of us graduated. So we were a small group, but boy, we supported one another. We had each other's backs. We made sure that we got through it. And in fact, I have a terrific t-shirt still in my closet. It's the one thing I haven't thrown out. It was one of the first t-shirts I got when I was at Harvard. And on the back, the women in the Latino group had engraved Las Comadres, because that's what we called ourselves, Las Comadres, because we were always together. And had it not been for that group of women, I wouldn't be standing here today. One other thing happened too. So at the end of my freshman year, I really wanted to come back to Denver, and I wanted to work in the community. And I reached out to Mi Casa. And that's where I had the great fortune to meet sort of a lifelong mentor and incredible leader, Juana Bordas. And Juana's like, Lisa, I don't have any money to pay you. And I'm like, don't worry, I'll find money somewhere. I had gotten a small grant from an organization at Harvard that if you worked at a nonprofit for the summer, they'd give you a little bit of money. And then I got an evening job so I could get sort of an hourly wage. But it was that experience, working with a group of women, again, committed to one another, that had a profound experience on me. And especially early on in your career, where there's so much ahead of you that you just can't even begin to imagine. So many times when you will feel what a professor of mine at business school used to call, it's not loneliness, it's onlyness, where you might be the only Latina in the room, or you might be one of the few Latinas in the room. I always had my comadres. I always had the experience I had in Denver at Mi Casa. I had the experience of seeing incredible Latinas build things, build institutions, and serve one another. And that, for me, was something that I carried with me for the rest of my time. I've been incredibly fortunate with the opportunities that have been given to me in my life. When I graduated from Harvard, I worked for a little time on the campus, and I worked at the Harvard admissions office, and I had the great chance to go around the country and recruit Latinos and other students to go to Harvard. In fact, Rosie Rios, the treasurer of the United States, is a young woman that I recruited to Harvard. Fidel Vargas, who is the CEO of the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, is someone that I recruited to go to Harvard. I came across incredible Latino talent all over the country. And I had the great fortune to try to convince them to come to Boston for 4 years, brave the cold, but come out armed with a degree that will allow you to take on the world. After my time at the admissions office, I shocked everybody in my family and my friends by saying I was going to go to business school. And people kind of scratched their heads and said, well, where is this coming from? All right, you never worked at a bank over the summer. You never worked for a consulting firm. Where is this coming from? And for me, I just saw tremendous opportunity in the private sector. And I thought that to have the opportunity to get an MBA and to basically be formally taught leadership was something that I could take into any sector. And so I went off to Harvard Business School. There were 6 Latinos. We all knew one another, and we're still good friends today. And then when I graduated, I had the opportunity to go into media. And for many reasons, I had a terrific career. I was fortunate enough to meet people who opened doors for me, who gave me support, who were there to gently nudge me when I was sort of going off in the wrong direction. But what they always knew is that in me, you had someone who was always willing to go through an open door. I was never scared of taking a risk with my career. I was never scared of being bold. I was never scared of being the only Latina and to maybe do something a little bit different. And I think that's something that all of us face many times in our career, because you're not always following the path that someone else has set for you. And I think it's very important to know that life is about this short. So the opportunity you have to make a difference, the opportunity you have to excel and to go into a field that maybe your heart was always interested in, but maybe your head couldn't completely wrap your head around about how you could do that. Now is the time in your life to take that sort of risk. Know who you are and know that your connection to your community is going to be instrumental for the rest of your life. It's going to be how you hear about jobs. It might be how you meet your husband or wife. It might be how you get introduced to being on the board of an organization. It might be where you have a service opportunity and can make a difference in the lives of others. So for me, having a profound impact on your community is also something that's very important. You know, when I went into the private sector, a lot of people said, well, Lisa, you've been sort of involved in nonprofit for so long and involved in education. Now that you're going into the private sector, how will you maintain those ties? And I tell people that being Latina and having an impact, you can do that in any sector. When I was in the private sector, I sat on boards. I did volunteer work. I had groups of Latinas who were in the 5th grade come in and shadow me for principal for a day. Many of these young women who lived in New York City had never been in a building with an elevator. All right, and so your opportunity to make a difference, regardless of the sector, I think is profound. So now, as I look to the future of my community, what are my hopes and dreams? Because I'm kind of coming to the tail end, right? I'm coming to I'm in my 50s. What is it, Juana? This is the time where you can sort of sit back and now be the wise leader to help the next generation come along. So what are my hopes and dreams for all of you? I want you to think about something. When I grew up in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the 80s, Latinos were a burgeoning immigrant community. In fact, 2/3 of Latino adults were born outside the US. And we were pretty small. In fact, when I launched People in Espanol, there were only 30 million Latinos in the country. So in the 1990s, there were only 30 million Latinos. Most of those adults born outside the US. So what did that mean? That meant that we were more likely to identify with our nation of birth when we were asked our background. When somebody said to you, oh, where are you from? They would say Mexican, Cuban, Puerto Rican. Their identity was with the nation of their birth. Also, with that community that chose to come to this country, there was an incredible, strong sense of optimism. There was an incredible work ethic. Everyone I went to Harvard with, none of them had parents who had gone to college except for me. This was a generation that came to this country because they wanted a better life for their kids. And they saw in this country profound opportunity. And so in that time, in the past few decades, I've experienced the Latino firsts. The first Latina on the Supreme Court, the first Latino governor of a state, the first Latino senator, the first Latino mayor of Denver, the first Latinos in C-suites, the first Latino astronaut who went into space, the first Latinos to win Oscars. So in politics, the arts, science, we have seen Latinos break through glass ceilings. Now, the world is shifting. Today, there's a profound demographic shift in our community and in the nation. All of you under the age of 35 are in a very different world. Did you know that 93% of Latinos under the age of 25 are born in the United States? And increasingly, we're likely to marry people outside of our nation of birth or our parents' nation of birth. So being half Mexican and half Puerto Rican, like I was, which was a complete anomaly back in the 60s, is not so strange now. And it also means that rather than identify, it also means that now, when you identify with the country of your birth, that country is the United States. And it also means that Latinos have a shared experience in this country and together. When someone insults Mexicans in a national presidential campaign, he is insulting all of us. All of us. We have a shared experience, and this means we have an unprecedented opportunity to shape this country. There are more Latinos graduating from college than ever before. More Latinos. The high school dropout rate in this country for Latinos has fallen precipitously. You don't see that in the media, do you? And so the opportunity for Latinos to graduate from high school, to graduate from college, to own homes, to engage in our communities, to have greater economic clout, to build wealth, and to have political power and influence has never been stronger than it is right now at this moment in time. And all of you have the opportunity and the responsibility to begin to change the narrative of who we are in this country. The U.S. is going through a profound demographic shift as well. 55 million Latinos in this country. We're the biggest racial ethnic minority in this country. If you go to states like California, Texas, Florida, and New York, we are the majority in many of the major cities in those states. We are not on the sidelines. You will not be the only any longer. And you'll find strength together. You'll find strength in your numbers. Look around this room. Look around this room. See what incredible power there is in the women that are sitting here, and the opportunity for you to have an incredible and profound impact on this state. We now have the opportunity to lead this country. We have the strengths in our numbers demographically. We have the strength in the academic achievement of our young people. We have the strength in our communities and leaders. But most importantly, we have the heart to lead this country forward, to change the hateful narrative around Latinos, to be part of the solution, to help this country heal, and to ensure that this country continues to be the great country that we are today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Wow. Powerhouse keynote address from Lisa Garcia Quiroz. Thank you. So now a moment that I think what resonates for me, what Lisa said, is having your community stand behind you. And one thing in the shuffle of welcoming everyone to the space I forgot to mention was each of us can look around this room and see who our comadres are. Who are the women that you lean to? Who are the women that you know you can call up for a moment of advice and reassuring, messages of love and support? And I think that's what we're building here today. So the next segment we're calling Inspiraciones. These are designed to be our own version of TED Talks. So when things don't exist in our communities, we build them. And that's what we're doing here today. So it's very important for us in the Inspiraciones that we have a wide array of women from every sector and every discipline. And unfortunately, Dr. Ramona Beltran is not able to join us due to unforeseen circumstances, but we were able to move things around on our program in very creative problem-solving style. One of our end piece art performances will be coming up forward by Cherie Love Mestiza Brown and Melina Speaks once again to make sure that we honor Ramona's part in the program, where we really wanted to bring forward how identity and culture shape our leadership style. So I'm now going to turn it over to Cherie Love Mestiza and Melina Speaks for their Inspiraciones. in the spirit of community y cultura, in the spirit of collective power and imagination, in the name of all that has come before and all that lies before us. It is no coincidence that we are here. We see one another. Let us lead our communities into a new paradigm with the richness of our collective power.
Please join me in this declaration of our collective power. We declare.
We declare.
We declare.
We declare.
We declare that we are human beings.
We declare that we are human beings.
We declare that we have always been human beings.
We declare that we have always been human beings.
We declare our right to human rights.
We declare our right to human rights.
Universal rights.
Universal rights.
We declare the rights of kings.
We declare the rights of kings.
Queens.
Queens.
Emperors.
Emperors.
Presidents.
Presidents.
Priests.
Priests.
Priestesses.
Priestesses.
Warriors.
Warriors.
Philosophers.
Philosophers.
Teachers.
Teachers.
Students.
Students.
Elders.
Elders.
And newborns.
And newborns.
We declare.
We declare.
We declare our place here.
We declare our place here.
Above all.
Above all.
As spiritual entities.
As spiritual entities.
With the right to exist without question.
With the right to exist without question.
We declare all declarations.
We declare all declarations.
And all rights to make all declarations.
And all rights to make all declarations.
As we see fit.
As we see fit.
Now and always.
Now and always.
For the betterment and fulfillment.
For the betterment and fulfillment.
Of all promises of humanity.
Of all promises of humanity.
Past, present, and future.
Past, present, and future.
We declare.
We declare.
We declare.
We declare.
We declare.
We declare.
I'm honored to have the opportunity to share some words as a man on stage with you all. This is titled Mujeres Lead Us. I as masculine, I embodiment of feminine energy too. I as ally, I as you. In the spirit of Inlak Esh, we as men searching, we welcome you to lead us back into balance. Latinas, lead us. Black women, lead us. Indígenas, mestizas, First Nations, all nations, lead us. Mothers, daughters, sisters, lovers, abuelas de maíz, nuestras tierras, nuestras aguas, nuestros vientos, carrying the dust of las estrellas, las ceras cósmicas, in time of space, galaxies, diositas. Bless us with new ways of seeing, being, and dreaming the great dream within us. Of dreams lost, forbidden, hidden, locked away, jailed, murdered, buried, erased out of texts, out of context. Resurrect the dreams that remind us of how to be one within many, many within one, in line and aligned with the great principles de la verdad, de la justicia, de paz, de equilibrio, de amor a nuestras comunidades, primera mera, como nuestras primeras memorias. We men have led for long enough without balance. And now we ask you to lead us back into a place of humility, of roots, on a path we can walk together again in dignity. Nuestros jóvenes come first. Nuestras madres come first. Nuestras tierras, nuestras aguas come first. The great energies of our source come first before the energies of capital, before the energies of paper money. First before oil, gas, coal, atomic energy, nuclear power, our lives come first. There is nothing more powerful than bringing life into being. Como las abejas, como la flor, como las semillas, breathing life into art, activism, education, democracy, business, philanthropy, a commitment to caring for our bodies, our minds, our familias, our souls. We are in need of a new paradigm. Mujeres, please call back again the great matriarchs of history. Please call back again the great matriarchs of future. Lead us, lead us, lead us, so we can stand alongside you again.
We know what they say about us. We know what people assume when we walk into a room, when they see our skin, read our names, hear our accents, see our bodily frames. What they don't know are the many fires we walked through to forge the steel of our convictions. What they don't know are the pressures we've endured to form the diamonds of our dreams and ideas, clear, multifaceted, and extremely valuable. What they don't know are all the times we've gone without, which paved the way for our ingenuity, our genius, our innovation, our resourcefulness. Quote, even though we go hungry, we are not impoverished of experiences. End quote, Gloria Anzaldúa. People think they know our story, but we are the only ones that do. We carry our stories with us in our bodies, in our tongues, in our expressions, and in the hands that move mountains. We're also the only one that can rewrite our stories. And why are our stories so important? Because we all come from storytelling peoples. And if we are all cut from the same storytelling cloth, then that must mean that the stories we weave now will be the fabric of legacies for the future. I'm ready to look deep into the future, to peer into the vast realm of limitless ether, an ever-changing space of movement, unpredictability, pattern, and possibility. I'm ready to learn how to create, how to dip my spirit into the rivers of time, saturating the waters with my visions, my prayers, while watching the ripples bend the structure of the water to a new rhythm. Someone bent time-space for me to be here. I know I must do the same. We belong in the future, which must also mean we belong in the now. Amalgamation of ancient future, we walk on threads of time, unable to see the whole tapestry that is weaving beneath our feet. But we walk anyway, trusting that our own rhythms will guide us in co-creating the bigger picture, co-creators of reality, an immensely honorable position, filled with more power and responsibility than we know what to do with. But those who pave the way, who walk uncharted terrain, who sail expansive, unpredictable waters, know the truth of their vision. We know the light that guides us and the dark that heals and reveals us. And while our fears may be and feel real, the visions of what is possible is far more important. Who suffers most from a limited dream but the dreamer themselves? Those who lead must always maintain the integrity of their liberated imagination, unshackled and free of the confines of judgment. Dreaming the vision is always the first step, the next step, and the last. When we are all moving towards our personal visions, what happens to the collective imagination? Ripples, waves, change. I'm ready to dream, to envision a world transformed by the hearts and the hands that build it. We build stories, cities, dreamscapes, houses, schools, gardens, families, and more. And in this process of building the world, we continue to build ourselves, co-creators of our own body of stories. To lead is to dream is to envision. To envision is to be connected to the truth of your bones. Imagination is the remembering of the limitlessness of your existence. Some often conflate this with ego, but true leaders know, true visionaries know that this limitlessness is our true state of being. As people of color, as women, as the lower income, as disenfranchised, as undocumented, as queers, as the gender nonconforming, we're all too familiar of the limits set upon us. But who will give us the permission to dream, to live fully, out loud in our limitlessness? Who will give us the permission to write new stories, ones with us in it? Who will grant us a seat at the table when our ancestors built the table themselves? Whose permission are you waiting on? What are you waiting for? Dr. Beltran would have been very proud of that performance. Let me switch mics here. She would really be honored by that performance. Thank you so much. Our next two speakers, just to kind of make up a little bit of time, we're going to put them sequentially. We're going to be joined by Andrea Windelman from Be Visible, the founder of Be Visible, to talk about sort of the new frontier of digital space and her own leadership journey in creating the Be Visible platform. And then we'll move over to Representative Crisanta Duran, who will share how policy making by a Latina for Latinas is sort of what she does every day in the state capitol, and how she has a very important charge to ensure that our lives are interconnected by way of policy. So I'll turn it over to Andrea Windelman, co-founder of Be Visible. Thank you.
Is to be unapologetic, to be fearless, to be your true, authentic self, to be acknowledged, to be influential,
is to exist,
to be yourself,
to be unified,
to have a voice,
To be bien chingona.
to be visible is to be fearless.
Please welcome to the stage Andrea Gwendelman.
Thank you so much for having me here. I don't know if I have to talk here. Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity, giving our community the opportunity to talk to such an impressive group of people. So I was told that I had to talk about leadership, and so that's what I'm talking about. I'm Andrea. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Be Visible, and I'm here accompanied by my co-founders Silvia Travesani and Nicole Castillo, and our dear other parts of our team, Isabela Núñez, Victoria Perez, and others here, Paolo Urgiles, many that. I want to see first who is a member of Be Visible, just to raise their hands. Excellent. That's a good showing. That's great. So when I worked as a lawyer in Wall Street, 360-degree performance review were all the rage. And the idea behind 360-degree performance reviews is that you would get feedback from basically the bosses on top of you, from your peers that you collaborated with, and from the people that reported to you. So 360-degree performance review would be this comprehensive and holistic evaluation of an employee's performance based on the people on top, the people on the peer level, and the people that you supervise. And at that time, I thought that 360-degree performance reviews were a little bit gimmicky. But then I co-created a platform, a career platform, a startup, that is creating a community, mobilizing millennials, and connecting talent with employers looking for talent. And I have become a convert. And like any good convert, I have become more Catholic than the Pope. And I do not only believe in 360 performance reviews, but I believe in 360-degree leadership. Now, I think that 360-degree leadership is important in any organization, but it's particularly important when you are creating a social media network, when human capital is your biggest asset, and when you're working with and working towards attracting millennials. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the millennials in a bit, but so now strap in and hang on. So before I explain to you what is my understanding of 360-degree leadership, I want to tell you about the organization I helped co-lead. So here, as I mentioned, are my co-founders, Nicole Castillo, Silvia Travesani, I think left recently. But we have created an organization that is connecting Latino talent with employers looking for this talent. And you can think of us as a LinkedIn for Latino millennials, except that Latinos are joining LinkedIn at the lowest rate of any other demographic group in the country. We have done countless surveys to understand why, and basically there's cultural reasons and there's other reasons, but basically they feel that they don't feel there's a community and a home. They feel that the huffing and puffing is something that they don't feel comfortable with. So, but Be Visible is solving more problems than this. As you know, and Lisa said it very eloquently, the Latino community is the largest growing demographic in this country, and the growth of college enrollment is the highest growth in any other, compared to any other population. Yet, we are still outside of the networks that feed the innovation economy, for some reason. And this is not only bad for us, but it's bad for the country. The country loses. Right now, there's severe talent shortages in industries such as engineering, marketing and advertising, finance. And there's a strong need of companies to find new leadership that will help them connect to this changing demographic. And that's what Be Visible has come in to connect the Latino talent with the hungry employers. But we have found out that for a community like Be Visible to grow and work well, we need 360-degree leadership. So there's two things that I mean when I talk about 260-degree leadership. I mean that the leadership is impacted by the groups we're working with. And second, and most importantly, it means that when Sylvia, Nicole, and I exercise our leadership in how we exercise our leadership in every corner and every aspect of our company and our community. So I'm going to start sideways. I'm going to start with in these groups that impact my leadership or our leadership. So first is my co-founder, Silvia Traversani. She comes from a long career in large media companies, including the Washington Post and others, and also small startups. And she's the one that makes her product work, and she manages a team of developers and exercises her leadership in many other ways. And I would say that from her, I have learned that you can have huge dreams, that it's totally okay to believe in yourself, and that working hard and having each other's back is the key to a successful marriage, in this case, a successful partnership. From Nicole Castillo here, in the audience here, that flew from Boston, I have learned that the passion for telling the stories of everyday leaders, that it could be a young person running for office, or it could be someone working in a non-for-profit trying to do social change, or it could be the struggle of a youth leader to trying to create attention to LGBT issues. But the important thing is that social change occurs with collaboration. Nicole has infused our platform, our company, with a type of intimacy and connectivity, the community feel that is actually not felt in any workplace, and let alone in a career network, less in LinkedIn or anything similar to that. So moving up the ladder, I have had the extreme blessing of having amazing advisors and investors that have taught me incredible leadership lessons. One of our advisors and investors is David Cohen, the CEO of Techstars, and from him, I learned how you work with your investors to become members of your team, and you bring them in. From I don't know if she's not here, I wish she could be here, Maria Shrin, who was a very high up executive at Goldman Sachs and now is the founder of a huge family office, Circle of Wealth in New York. I have learned that leadership is more than a corporate position, power, or money. That the ability to fight for your dream, to be relentlessly in the quest to succeed, and to never give up until you find what you're looking for is the key to success. And lastly, but not least, is Rachel Griego, who actually used to work at the Latino Community Foundation. And it's thanks to her that I met this amazing community. From Rachel taught me that leaders can really enforce the visionary's dream and make them even go further beyond in the quest for what they're looking for. She believed in Be Visible, in the idea of Be Visible, and the team from day one. And she believed that the work that we were doing in connecting these communities was essential for moving the community forward. I also would like to acknowledge the people that work with us every day, many times as volunteers. Here's Isabela Nunez here in the back, working with me hand in hand to bring employers to the community now and bring awareness of the extreme talent that we have. We have people in our social media team, like Amanda in New York, and Vanessa in New York also. We have another incredible member of our team that is not here either, Elizabeth. Sorry. Another incredible member of our team, Michelle and Virginia. And finally, we have Victoria that is here, that has worked with us on and off, a brilliant biologist. When we have people, and Paola Urgiles that work with us all the summer. We have just amazing people. So now, let's go to the really interesting part of this talk, the part that I think is the meat. Most of our online community is comprised of millennials. And my generation and older people, I often disparage this generation and refer to them as special snowflakes. And I think that this really shows that there's a very little understanding of how this generation works and what makes them tick. And in my interaction with millennials in building Be Visible, I think there are very important common threads. One of them is that they're at the same time incredibly idealistic and incredibly pragmatic. By that I mean that they want to change the world, but they want to do it in incremental, practical steps. Second, I think that they are incredibly entrepreneurial. And by that, I don't mean that they want to become Mark Zuckerberg, necessarily, although some of them may. But what I mean is that they bring a what-if and can-do attitude that rejects hierarchical structures and embraces a hacker mentality to problems that include business problems and social problems. I have found that the millennials in our team are at the same time, basically, yearn for leadership and yearn for mentorship. So they're ready to hit the ball running, but they also want to be part of a team, and they also want to receive instructions when necessary. Many of the millennials that work for us work on a voluntary basis because they're moved by the passion of the cause and the community. Millennials in our platform help us create the technology. A lot of people think that we're much bigger than what we are, and this is thanks to a social media team that Nicole helps manage, which amplifies our voice all the time. Millennials help us to bring users. They organize events, they invite their friends to a community, they pass the word. And millennials help Be Visible sell our talent solution because they tell us what is working and not working in their job search. So 360-degree leadership helps Be Visible community grow because it brings the experience and the leadership of people that have made it, but it also brings the energy and the values of the people that are looking to make it and looking to change the world. And so I have learned from all these leaders a tremendous amount, and I continue to learn every day, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Andrea. Now we are going to welcome Representative Crisanta Duran to wrap us up for Women in Policy and how Crisanta's own leadership journey. So welcome, Crisanta.
All right, well, good afternoon. It's tough going last after a long day, but I am so happy to be here with all of you. And thank you so much for being here today to be part of this incredible event and this vision to bring our community together, to make sure that we have collective action and that we support each other. It's so incredibly important. So I want to start by thanking the Colorado Latino Foundation and all of the work that you do. It is a great honor to be here in front of you you today to serve as a majority leader in the Colorado House of Representatives. And I have a long history in Colorado. I have 6 generations of family in the state. I come from ranchers and farmers. I come from laborers. I come from people who believed in the promise of our country. I'm the daughter of a labor leader and a daughter of a state employee who served her entire career working in affordable housing. And I often think about who inspired me to be in this position and to advocate for change. And I often think of my grandmother, Eva. My grandmother, Eva, was an incredible, incredible woman. She lived in Pueblo, and during the summers and during holidays, I would go and spend time with her. And the trips that I would take to go see my grandmother, I love to see her because you walk in her home and you smell green chili and pozole and homemade bread and all the, she was just an incredible, incredible chef. But my grandmother also was such a strong woman and a leader in her own right. And my grandmother only had a 3rd grade education. And the reason why she only had a 3rd grade education is because her parents took her out of school at a very young age because she was the oldest girl of a lot of younger brothers and sisters. And they said because she was the oldest girl that she was going to help the family be able to take care of all of her brothers and sisters. And so for my grandmother, when I would go and visit her, I loved to spend time with her, especially in her older days, because she was getting sick and her hands would shake. She had Parkinson's disease. And so every time I would go see her, I would help her do the most basic of things, help her brush her teeth, help her paint her nails. And as she got older, she always took such value in being presentable. And she had such pride in being an incredible mother, a wonderful grandmother, and a phenomenal wife. But I also knew that there were times when I would go and visit my grandmother that she was embarrassed, that she didn't know how to read. And she was embarrassed that she didn't know how to write. And she was embarrassed that she was never able to know how to drive. And when you think about that, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. And so as a little girl, I would go and visit my grandmother and I would bring my books to her. I would bring the same books that I learned how to read from, and I tried to teach her. And my grandmother used to tell me, Hita, I'm too old. I can't learn anymore. And I used to always say to her, you're never too old to learn. And I think about my grandmother because this year I had the great opportunity of speaking at the Democratic National Convention, the same day that Hillary Clinton accepted the nomination and the first woman to do that and talk about her platform and her values and her vision for America. And when I walked out on that stage, I thought about my grandmother and I thought, my God, if she had the choice, if she had the opportunity to meet her true potential and her greatest potential, what would she have done? And I knew in that moment that she was looking down on me with a smile on her face. And I tell you that story because as somebody with 6 generations of family in the state, I come from Native Americans and Mexican and Spanish descendants, there's so many times that I feel like our story is still not told in the year 2016. And I tell you that story because that little girl who used to walk into my grandmother's house with my books under my arm to try and teach her how to read, that feeling that I had then is the same feeling that I get when I go across the state and I talk to people, Democrats and Republicans and unaffiliated, about their hopes and their dreams, about what keeps them awake at night, about their frustrations, about what they want to see for their kids and for the next generation of leaders. It's that same feeling that I had when I met undocumented students throughout the state of Colorado, and we finally passed Colorado Asset so that undocumented students could get in-state tuition. It's a type of feeling that I've had when I've talked to families who want to make sure their kids are breathing clean air. And that's why we passed a new renewable energy standard in Colorado, and that we've promoted electric cars and alternative fuel vehicles. It's the same story, and it's the same feeling that I think about and that I have when I talk to people who have worked their entire careers, and they've worked hard. And now we have a changing economy, and they need retraining to be able to get a good paying job, to be able to provide for themselves and for their families. It's that feeling that inspires me every single day that I walk into the Capitol. And I know the responsibility that we have to deliver on the issues that people care most about. And when I think about this election, and this is a nonpartisan event, and I'm going to be nonpartisan. But when I think about this election, there is so much at stake. And we all understand that feeling of trying to see others reach their full potential, because if you didn't have that feeling at some point in your life, then you wouldn't be in this room right now. And when I look at what is going on nationally and here in Colorado, I feel a responsibility to say some things that need to be addressed. Because regardless of whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, when we look and we hear about the national rhetoric and the things that people are saying and doing, what is at stake this election is much, much bigger than who is president of the United States. It's about the message that we're sending to our kids. It's about the message that we're sending to our young people. And when I see rhetoric of people who are in the media who say things like, a woman was a slob, or she ate like a fat pig, or it is very difficult to be a 10 if you're a woman, if you're flat-chested. When those types of things are said, they're not just words, they're messages of what we're telling people that we value. And when I think about that, and when you think about that, I think about all of the little girls in Colorado who barely eat because they want to look like a model on a magazine. And I think about the little girls who cry alone at night because they've been bullied. They were told that they couldn't do whatever they wanted to do. And I think about the little girls who are told that you're not going to reach your full potential and that you're going to be bullied. And if you speak out after you've been bullied, then you're going to be shamed. And it is unbelievable to me that in the year 2016, that this is a conversation that we are having in the United States of America. And I worry about the little boys who have to know that it is not okay to just talk about little girls based on the way that they look. That little girls are more than their measurements. I worry about the little boys, too, who need to know that they cannot bully each other. So this is much, much, much bigger than who wins or who loses on November 8th, because we have to lay a foundation for the future, for the next generation, to make sure that regardless of where someone is from or what their background is, that everyone has a shot to be a part of the American dream, and everyone has a shot to reach their full potential. And so regardless of which way you're going to vote, I would encourage you to vote, because we have incredible power within our Latino community to make a major, major difference. And don't just give your vote to somebody, make them earn it. Make them earn your vote with the issues that you care about, the things that you want to see in government, the things that you want to see in leadership, the issues that you want to be followed up on and fought for at the State House. Because we have an incredible, incredible opportunity in front of us. And for the people who say that special interests control everything, it's just about the money that comes in politics, it's just about, a rigged system, and the system is rigged against us. To all of those folks who believe that and have given up on the beauty of our country and having representative government, I will tell you, I would not be standing in front of you today if that was the truth. And we need to have a government that is inclusive of everyone, where everyone has a seat at the table, where we can advocate for Colorado asset and new renewable energy and workforce development and affordable housing, and making sure that we invest in transportation, our roads, our bridges, all of those things that people care about, and college affordability and seeing comprehensive immigration reform. We know the obstacles that are in front of us. But the only way that we will get there is with the support of all of you, of voting, of talking to your friends, of talking to your colleagues, and making sure that your vote counts and that it can make a difference. And so with that, live with purpose, lead without fear, and know that you have a friend in the State House who is listening to the issues that you care about. And I look forward to working with all of you to move our state forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Duran. That's wonderful. Now I'm going to turn it over. I know some of you were here earlier today. There's a couple big days that we're celebrating. Today's National Coming Out Day. That was celebrated earlier during our forum. It's amazing that we have built inclusivity into our space in many ways. And today is also International Day of the Girl. And so we had to move mountains so that our next guest could join us before running off to another program. But it gives me great honor and pleasure to introduce Sonia Olibari, CEO of Girls Inc., a member of our leadership committee.
Hello. So we're almost to the end of the day. Thank you so much for sticking with us. So what a beautiful and powerful day for Latinas in Colorado. Wouldn't you agree? Yes. We've come here to be inspired, to connect, to be motivated, to move our collective voice forward together. And I'd like to thank the Latino Community Foundation for really creating this incredible space for us and being such a catalyst in this work. So yes, that deserves an applause. As you've experienced firsthand, today is about creating a unique Latino and Latina-centered space. The Power Summit and the launch of Latinas Lead is a forum and a vehicle for sharing our unique stories, for building our networks, and for giving our very best to each other, across sectors, across ages, across identities. Today is also about our commitments to each other. Like Nicole said, today is International Day of the Girl, which I think is so poignant. It's a global day in which we recognize and celebrate the rights, vibrancy, and promise of girls and young women across our world. It's also a day that we share our commitments to building a community that invests in women and girls. At Girls Inc. of Metro Denver, I see these investments pay off every day. Girls who are the first in their families to go to college. Girls who are pursuing careers as scientists and engineers, politicians, and entrepreneurs. Girls who are advocating for pay equity, challenging gender stereotypes, and working tirelessly on issues that affect them, their families, and their communities the most. I believe that all of us here today, we all can recognize the power and the value of investments, because many of us have been invested in. So today, the last theme, I think, is really that investment piece. We know that our communities are philanthropic. We know that we are not just the recipients of other people's goodwill or other people's charity. We are givers, we are volunteers, and we are agents of change. As Latinas, we're among the most generous in the philanthropic sector. Women across every income level outpace men in their giving. Now we have the opportunity not only to support this work and to make this fact true, but we have the opportunity to really own it. We can invest in the leadership of other Latinas. We can invest and support scholarships that cultivate Latina potential, and we can field grant-making issues that are important to Latinas in our community. With all of this charge, you can do it simply by taking a look at this envelope on your table, right? It's in front of everyone. Inside is an opportunity to create this ownership for each other, for ourselves, for now, and for the future. So with this envelope, you can say, I support this work, not only today, but tomorrow and moving forward. Your gifts to the Latino Community Foundation, and today 100% of that goes to Latinas Lead, are secure. We take care of that information. We want to make sure you feel comfortable. You can give in all kinds of different ways. Each gift that you give that's significant for you is significant for us. It takes a community to come together at all levels to make this happen. So what I'd like to ask too, we have a lot of our leadership in the room, is who is willing to stand with us as leaders in this, and who is willing to say, I'm going to support this work moving forward. If there's anybody in the room who'd like to share that publicly, I know that not everyone does, but if you would be willing to just stand and let us know that you're behind what we're doing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Again, it takes a community of all of us. Look at that. Can you stand again, everyone that stood? Can you just stand one more time? Yes. So thank you for that, and thank you for all of the ways that we can contribute to this in with our unique assets, with our unique investments, and we look forward to, again, continuing this work and seeing this day as a start. So thank you so, so much for your investment.
Thank you once again to everybody who pledged to make a gift for Latinas Lead. 100% of your gifts today will go into grant making for Latina leadership across the state. And even, as we heard from Hetzi earlier today, you know, the gift of bringing a group of girls from a rural community to Denver, which is $1,000, is incredibly meaningful for their life experience and for their leadership growth. So thank you. I just want to end the day thanking our sponsors, AT&T. Once again, in 2017, we'll be hosting our first annual Power Summit, and that's going to be a full day, sometime probably in late spring, May. And what we hope to do there is to have a full day of workshops centered on professional development for women across the state, inspirational speakers, and building community. So thank you again for joining us.
And just in closing, I'm not going to take up too much time, but just wanted to say something that I heard, not too long ago. But, we've heard of is, you need to pass the torch. And that's really the old paradigm of passing the torch. we should not have to pass the torch. What our job is to do is to light a lot more torches out there. So I ask all of you, doesn't matter how old you are, how much work you have, be an inspiration to others and light someone else's torch. Because the more torches we have, the further we're going to go along as a united community. So thank you for coming. We appreciate everything. And in the back, you probably see some people with piggy banks. And you see them around and so forth. These little piggy banks is a partnership we have with citywide banks. And the goal of it is to fill your piggy bank with money. And at the end of the year, donate that money to an organization in your community. Not back to us, or whatever, but donate it to an organization in your community. But throughout the year, have that piggy bank somewhere visible where you can engage in a conversation with your family, with your friends, to know what it means to give back, because it is important that we give back. As Sonia had said, we're givers, not takers. And we need to be able to go ahead and give and share so that we all can rise together. Thank you again for coming today. We appreciate that, and we look forward to seeing you at other future events.
We'll see you in 2017 at our Power Summit, and hopefully in February, our Latinas Lead Happy Hour, when we know whether or not we'll be shattering glass ceilings.